I have a long list of other organizations, other economic groups that have said we are not in a recession.
Typically, recessions they demonstrate wide job losses, high unemployment. Those are terrible for American families, and we're not seeing anything like that.
That doesn't sound like a recession to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, the White House and Wall Street, they have their marching orders, but how does Main Street see this? A new CNBC survey of small business owners that reveals that 57% think the recession has already started. It's Senator Blackburn's point here. They always get shafted. And for those who say we aren't there yet, 14% think it'll start before the end of the year. Joining me now is Peter Schiff, chief economist, global strategist for Euro-Pacific Capital, host of the Peter Schiff podcast. All right, Peter, so now that it looks like this tax and spend bill is going to advance, suddenly the economy is going to turn around. We'll be raining in solar panels. What's going to happen?
Well, first of all, remember, Laura, every dime that the government spends constitutes a tax. Spending is taxation because all that spending has to be paid for. But the recession that we are currently in is actually a lot worse already than people think. Look at the data that came out on Friday on household debt surging to a new all-time record high, $16.15 trillion. You know, American families have taken on $2 trillion of debt just since the pandemic. But worse, the national debt has increased by $8 trillion during the same time period. American households are responsible for paying that debt, but they're already drowning in their own debt. Credit card debt year over year just rose by the most in 20 years, and that's because Americans are having to put their groceries on their credit cards because they're taking unprecedented pay cuts in a very weak labor market.
Well, we have Republicans, though, who went along with a lot of this so-called infrastructure spending, earlier in the year, and they stood up and basically applauded. Oh, we're working in a bipartisan fashion with the Democrats. And at the time I said, watch your wallet, and here comes the Greeniac agenda right on the tail of it. It took a while, but they passed it.
Yeah, we can't afford it. We need cuts in government spending. That's why we have so much inflation, because we're spending so much money, and the Federal Reserve is printing money because congressmen don't have the integrity to actually ask the American public to pay for all the spending, so they make them pay secretly through inflation. But now the inflation is so great that it's already pushed us into recession, and so now Americans are going to be suffering the worst of both worlds. We're going to have high inflation and recession at the same time, and the policies of the Biden administration are going to make inflation and the recession worse.
Yeah, and the employment market is showing signs of cooling. They were holding that up as that's the great pillar holding this whole thing up. Peter, thank you.